Welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar-Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we get to hear from Morgan Katz, a fellow North Texan. Morgan is going to share her entrepreneurial journey with us about building her business, Ticketnology. Morgan, welcome to the show.
Lauren, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Me too. So tell us, what is Ticketnology?
Yeah, great question. Happy to share. So at Ticketnology, we're changing the game for season ticket holders. So companies will buy season tickets to help with their business development, their employee engagement, all sorts of reasons. But what happens is someone buys it and it becomes someone else's other duties as assigned. And there's this disconnect, but it's a large budget item. So we have a software system called Ticket Booth that puts all of that ticketing information, and now it's data. You know, what you're using, what you're not, how much money you're spending on clients for every event, who's using all the tickets in the company, does it affect employee retention? Whatever you want to know about it, we'll find a way to report on it. So that's our main product. And then we have some other additional software opportunities for companies that do a little bit more. They've got sponsorship elements. They want to buy tickets to other events. So anything encompassing that client entertainment budget or that live event budget, we can help them manage that in a better solution.
Okay, that's so interesting. So it's not like on the venue side or the arts organization side or what have you. It is directly to that corporate consumer that has suites or tickets or whatever that they're doling out for executives and customers.
Exactly. So we're like an aftermarket product. So after somebody buys it, we can come in and help them actually utilize it in a better way.
Okay. Where did this idea come from?
So I've been in entertainment and ticketing my entire career on the sales side in baseball and music venues for a long time. And there was always this, hey, I'll see you at the event. And then I never saw you at the event. So yeah, right. There's this huge disconnect. National average from a couple years ago was 47% of corporate season tickets go unused. So it's just a huge kind of red flag in the industry. So here to kind of change that, make sure people see the value. We really work with the smaller to medium businesses because it's a big line item for them. And oftentimes they don't have the manpower to really have this be someone's full-time job.
Yes, because it is. My husband works for a regional bank here in the area, and we are the lucky beneficiaries of tickets from time to time. And it is someone's job to dole them out. Sometimes they're physical tickets, sometimes they're digital tickets, and just dealing with that it could be a full-time job for sure.
100%. Did they accept it? Did you have the right email? Who's using what? And then we've all gotten them at, the email at 2:00 the day of the game.
Yes.
We call it the B-list wedding invite. And so it's like, do you want these tickets? It'll be so great. And you're like, if it's so great, why is it 2:00 the day of? So we try to make sure to eliminate that where we can.
Yes, exactly. I love it. Yeah. And scrambling to get who's coming and all that. Oh gosh.
All of it.
It's not something that maybe everyone would think about, but if you're in it, you're thinking about it.
That's it. That is it. Once you have owned this project, you are like, tell me there's a solution, tell me there's a resource, or even someone almost to commiserate with sometimes. Like, we understand it. Everyone on our team has been in this industry in some capacity, ticketing, sponsorship, box office, all of it. So really understanding the ins and outs and where we can be a resource or a subject matter expert for people.
Okay. And so are you on the tech side? Are you primarily the entrepreneur? Like as this business came to be, what did that look like?
Yeah, not a tech founder. Friends and family are like, are we sure this is the direction you should be going in? And I'm like, fair question. So definitely own the client experience, understand the operations from the ticketing side, the customer side, and really just want to make sure that we provide just the best customer opportunity. We say that we're customer experience obsessed. And so we do that in every aspect that we can control on our side. And that's a real pride of mine to own that.
Okay. And how long have you had your business?
Yeah. So we started this business in a different format in 2019.
Okay.
COVID changed us because there were no live events, right?
Sure, it did.
Yeah, it sure did. So it then became, how are we going to be relevant coming out of this? So we changed to a ticketing. That's when we started doing software. We started building software and launched in April of 21 as a tech company. So this version of the company since April of 21.
Okay. All right. And how has adoption been for y'all?
Yeah, it's been good. We've had some incredible core clients that have stayed with us from pre to this change, and we've been able to make sure that we have products that fit for what they need, and really talk to them about what we're doing and where we're going. Season ticket management is not a ranking keyword in Google, so there's a lot of education that we've gotten to do. A lot of making sure that people understand the process. The big guys know what it is. The Googles, Anheuser-Busch, the Oracles, all them, they have systems. They build their own sometimes, things like that. Sometimes the smaller to medium think, oh, this is just the way I do it on an Excel sheet. So lots of education in the last few years, but I'm really lucky with the growth we've had, the path we're going. We continue to grow in new markets every year, which has been really fun.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was the preamble. Now for the first official question. Sure. Morgan, are you an impatient entrepreneur?
100%. Patience is not a virtue I possess. Yes. And I've been told that since I was very young, and I live and breathe it. Whatever personality test you want to take, a trailblazer, adventurer, the ones that are wild and bold, that's where I always live on those results.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Phew, I pass.
Yeah. 100%.
Is there anything you're impatient about in particular right now?
Right now, we're finding some new marketing opportunities for us, and I'm impatiently waiting the results. Right, it's all A/B testing, what's working, what's not. Again, we're not a typical business, so we don't really market typically to a degree. We do a lot of events, a lot of content, which might seem every day, but we don't do cold emails. We do a lot of different things, or what we're mailing are different items, right? So there's sports themes, music, entertainment themes. So we try to make it fun and creative to match who we are, and kind of our tagline of changing the game.
Nice. Okay. Okay. So as a leader and founder, how do you fuel yourself, or, keep yourself fresh and keep growing, as an entrepreneur? We have a shared, group, sort of, we met through Entrepreneur Organizations Accelerator Group. You have now graduated. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks.
But other than EO, who do you look to? Do you read books? Do you listen to podcasts? How do you keep Morgan on the top of her game?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not a huge podcast. I get a little lost when I have the sound only. So I've become more of a reader. And so that is a newer thing too, but I feel kind of in this new tech era of who we are at Ticketnology, that there's way more for me to read than I was reading prior. So that's really exciting. So, big reader, either through books, content online, just kind of a mixed media of where I pick it up from. And then I do a couple groups. So as I mentioned, EO, I do one for practical founders, which are software founders that have no VC funding. Which is really enlightening. And it's tech talk, right? But it makes me understand the terms, the words. There's a whole education there that I'm really thankful for. And then a few local in the North Texas area that I do, such as mini MBA classes that are put on throughout the year for different organizations. I make sure that those take a priority on my schedule.
Nice. And speaking of VC funding, did you do capital raises for your business?
We are bootstrapped.
Okay.
So we are self-funded, funding through growth. So we're going the old-fashioned way, I guess you would, versus the more typical VC funding that we've seen as of late.
And was that a strategic decision? What is it, sort of a necessity decision? What was the thinking there?
Yeah, it was definitely a strategic decision without knowing it was a strategic decision, right? So it just started as this is what we'll do. And I kind of had it in my mind that you needed to be to a certain level to get funding. And then by the time I got to that level, I didn't necessarily want to look at funding. So my goal is my personal BHAG with this company is to grow it to 10 million in revenue with a clean cap table. So no other equity investors, which is pretty significant to do in any business, but also in tech as a female and in sports tech as a female too, right? So lots of check boxes for if we'll class, on ways to classify that.
Yeah. Well, good for you. It makes sense to me. Like, I think, I guess if as you think about exit, makes sense there. How long do you think it'll take you?
That's a great question. I, about a year ago, made this bold statement, like kind of out of nowhere, like all entrepreneurs do. I feel like sometimes, like, we're going to be at 10 million by 2026. And I'm starting to revisit that a little bit. I think we'll be there closer to 2020, late 2027, maybe 2028. So not super far off. But I think if we can continue with the momentum of what we're doing and producing for our customers the way that we are, we'll be able to get there quickly.
Nice. Good for you. Good for you. I love it. Are you creating anything like that right now? Like, do you have new products or services, or do you have like a book you're working on, or a podcast series, or you mentioned something before we started recording that you're doing something, but what is there anything that you're working on?
Yeah, we got a couple things. So we do have some product creation going on right now for the system that will roll out in June. So we're finishing some testing on things, just a couple core features that we think will be really beneficial in the ease of our users. So that'll happen in the next few weeks. The second thing we do is every year we do an in-person event called Pro Panel, and we bring in a pro to speak. And so this is where we bring our clients, partners, vendors, everybody in, and we bring in some pro to speak to them. It could be a music pro, could be an athlete, all sorts of options. So this year, what we're doing is to build up to that is Pro Panel Preseason. And it's 3-part series, a virtual series with some of our pros that are customers. So it's talking to leaders in entrepreneurship, leaders in the HR and recruiting world, leaders in the finance world that are customers of ours, but have incredible stories to tell of their own pro journey in their career. Cool. So that is actually starting in this week is our first one. So we're super excited for that. And just to continue to build that Pro Panel brand within Ticketnology.
Nice. Good for y'all. That's great. Subject matter expertise and being a generous brand and all that good stuff.
Yeah. And we hope it brings some light on what they're doing too. Right. And so then it also just creates kind of, when we're talking to people, let us tell you about this story, and we have other information and resources to tie back to those clients.
Love it. Very cool. So you may have already kind of alluded to it, but I will ask the question. What's something that's happened in your business life where you felt like the rug really got pulled out from underneath you and you were not sure how you're going to survive it, but looking back, you realized it was one of the best things that could have happened to you?
Yeah. I mean, for us, it was COVID, which I feel like that's an answer for a lot of people. But for us, it really defined who we were going to become. So February 2020, my daughter was born. I took 2 weeks off. I'd been back to work for about 10 days and then the first shutdown for NHL. And so I think at the time we were all like 30 days. I was like, cool, I'll have 30 days with my daughter. Like, this is great. No big deal. And then, as we all know, it changed, right? And so we went several months, no revenue, no product, no nothing. And we just tried to be a resource for our customers. They were dealing with teams that would either refund because of COVID or were holding funds that they had already put in for future gains and not knowing what to do.
Right.
So we just tried to be a sounding board on ways to look at it. Personally, I got amazing time that I never would have gotten with my daughter as a startup entrepreneur. So that was the big win right there. And then during that time, spent a lot of time with the whiteboard and what are we going to do? What am I going to do coming out of this? And that's where ultimately I made the decision to invest in building some technology from all these conversations we were having with our customers to help them fully understand and operate at a better level coming out of COVID.
So what was different about the business before and after?
Yeah. So prior, we actually had a different name. We were called Event Finders, and I was a corporate ticket broker. So I would help companies understand what they were buying and then find other companies if they weren't using them. So if they had, 10 seats to something, but really only needed 4 or 6 to right size, we would make relationships. Being that I had been in sales in that space, I had a lot of contacts that I was able to connect people with and make those relationships for them. It was not a buy online, sell online. It was direct relationship B2B concept. But we did not, it was a lifestyle business. It was a personal concierge concept, completely different.
Totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. I was worried about, you need a parking pass, at 6:00 at night and processing that element versus, so what's on our product roadmap for the next 6 months of software development? Just very different conversations.
Totally different. Do you ever miss the business in its 1.0 stage, or are you pleased with where it's gone?
I'm really happy with where we took the change. There's some people that didn't jump on board when we went software, and that's fine. We sent them to a great partner. And so the ones that did stay, that were like, I see what you're doing and how it can be valuable. That's what I'm super thankful for.
Great. COVID, I think, really for the savvy folks who looked at, like, rather than letting it kill them, looked at it as used as a metaphor. Obviously, that was a challenging time for many people. I don't mean to make light of it. But for the business owners, there were some people who just said, I can't endure another challenge. I can't think through how to innovate. I can't pivot. It was just a lot to ask, and they didn't make it. But I love hearing stories like yours where folks were just like really went back to the drawing board of, this isn't working and this isn't sustainable, and this, what else could we do? And to, a lot of people made some tweaks, but for your business to fundamentally change.
We changed names, everything, right? And it was what we had to do. And I'm so glad that we did it. So I had been running the Event Finders world for just at a year, almost to that point. And I had realized how much I liked being an entrepreneur, how much I liked being on my own, how unemployable I probably was to come back into a system. And so with that, it was part of that driving force of, okay, what's it going to change? How are we going to grow with the change in sports? And we just kept hearing over and over of how hard digital ticketing was for these companies to change. And so we knew there had to be a better solution.
So I imagine being a resource for your clients, even, you're trying to just be there for them. And then through that, you're getting incredible data.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's amazing. It's amazing what we hear and what people want to share about, experiences. And I have talked about this several times over the last few years. The teams that played nice in the sandbox with clients during that time on either delayed payments, refunds, partial, all sorts of things, have had a better longevity in their season ticket holders. Those that got a little snippy and held a line that they created did not always work out so well with their corporate retention those last few years.
There's a lot of lessons there. Just working with people, and like you said, like, it was a manufactured line, like that was artificial. I mean, I guess they're all artificial at some point, but but I think like, why are we doing this? What's
So it was very interesting just to see kind of the trickle effect as people, 3-year deals came up last year, or 5-year deals this year or last year, with that as being part of that year.
Do you foresee events or ticketing going, any trends that you're seeing kind of coming down the pipe?
Yeah, lots of trends, lots of things happening on the primary side. I think we all saw, last year, Ticketmaster, Live Nation were all in the news with Taylor Swift and all of that. I think you're going to start seeing more upfront pricing, which is a great win for the buyer. SeatGeek's already committed that all of their shows will do it. Anything listed in New York has to do it. A couple states have bills in their, either Senate or House that are up for making it be all in when you click, oh, I want to buy this $39 ticket versus when you get to checkout and it's $57 and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah,
right.
Right. It's like $39 ticket and $39 in fees. And you're like, oh my God.
Yes. So I think you're going to see more of that upfront. I don't think it's going to be, I think it's going to be state by state for a while, but hopefully as a company, ticketing companies start to make decisions with that upfront. I also think you're going to see more where you have one, kind of like a credit card. You have one ticket that you always scan for whatever, as long as it's the same ticketing source for venues. And that whether it's a football game, a concert, a Broadway show, if they're all using the same main platform, you'll see one barcode that'll be connected with everything in the background. I think you'll see that in the coming years. That is not a tomorrow, but there's some technology out there that's in a couple companies that do festivals for wristbands that we're starting to see more and more of. The trick is how that gets passed when you're sending corporate clients to one or two events. How do you get it back? How does it, does it time out? Things like that. So a lot of technology pieces that have to be figured out for that to work effectively. But it could start with the general public of like buying tickets and then premium club season tickets doesn't touch it for a couple of years. And then after all the oops are figured out, they work up to that client base.
Yeah, as a consumer, it's interesting to receive tickets. Sometimes it's Ticketmaster, sometimes it's this or that, the other, and sometimes it can go in your Apple Wallet, and sometimes it won't. It's like some things can be saved to your camera roll, and something. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah, there's a lot, and even at the same venue, different like American Airlines that are in Dallas. Mavs have one, Stars have another, AAC has another, and there's the main Ticketmaster. So there's a lot of confusion. And how do you connect that? The dots have to be figured out, but it's going to take a couple of years.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, fascinating. Okay, so when you were growing up, what was something about you, like your your personality, that people made you feel like it was a weakness? But now as a leader, you realize it is actually your superpower.
Yeah, I think it goes back kind of that personality test we were talking about earlier, right? So bold, loud, maybe a little bit of a know-it-all, all those things have been said about me. And that's okay. Been called a bulldog once or twice, and I'm totally fine with that. It's interesting though, as you learn how to communicate a little bit differently as you grow up and just different roles I think you hold. Now, instead of being a bulldog or, a loud, it's like, oh, Morgan talks the truth. Okay, well, that's a very different way to say it. So I think there's always a way to refine that tool or that characteristic, which I've put a lot of personal time and energy into the last few years, especially transitioning to, not only owning a company, but building a team, growing a team, all that. It really changes how you need and have to talk sometimes. And so that is still the baseline of who I am, and loud and bold and brave, not afraid, all that. But just kind of refining it and turning it on or off with certain levers at certain times and different conversations with certain people have been really good tools that I've added.
Yeah, you can turn the volume up and down.
Correct. Yeah.
And still be you.
Yes, exactly. We're still going to have some fun around here.
I think I've shared it on the podcast before, but I have a daughter as well. She's 9. And when she was about one and change, I went to pick her up from preschool, and I walked into the baby room, and she was crying, and I was just like, what's going on here? And her teacher at the time said, oh, she's upset. She was just being bossy. And I said, oh, you mean she was exercising her leadership skills?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. There's a meme going around, and it's basically like an older lady tells a mom who's struggling with a daughter. She was like, my child did that too. She almost killed me, but now she's the CEO of a company, right? And it's that whole concept of changing the tune and the direction of it. But yeah, I've got two little ones that are can both use the word no while making direct eye contact with you and have no fear about it. And you're like, okay, let's
that is like, that's on me. That's on me.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So let's change this conversation. Yeah. It's just very funny.
Well, and I think I brought up that anecdote personally because, and I'm sure you received this as well growing up with a strong personality that, people would say things that, whether or not you receive them fully, like weren't necessarily meaning to be ugly, but you absorbed it. And I think we just really need to be more thoughtful about how we speak to young people, or all people, but we think about young people, especially young girls, that we're supporting them and directing them. Maybe we do need to modulate our volume a little bit and learn how to do that without just totally putting someone on mute. And so I'm a big advocate of that conversation.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's about context. I think now there is more context behind those words versus maybe when I was growing up, that was just the way words were used. That word was used. And it wasn't necessarily started bad, but it took a negative tone versus it being, the accuracy was lost and things like that. So I think there's just better context about the right word at the right time, at the right age, right? There's a lot to do with age.
Yeah. And are we treating everybody equally with all those personality traits?
Yeah, right.
So your baby born in 2020, was that number one or number two?
That was number one. And then my son was born in December of 22. So right now I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yep.
Yep. Busy mornings.
Yes. And how are you managing? Those are young ages that require a lot from parents. So running a growing business and being a parent to some very young children, like how are you managing that? How do you really try to carve up your time so that you are able to give your best to them as well as your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I do try to be really intentional with my time when I'm at work. Right. So when after drop off in the morning and I get back home, let's work. And then I try to, end my day 3-ish, 4 at the latest and pick up. Right. So we have time to play before dinner because it's a short time frame for a 2 and a 4-year-old in the evening. Right. So we try to do something like that. But I try to be really intentional with working during work and not afterwards or after they go to bed. Right. Like picking something back up. Because we all know as an entrepreneur that happens, right? You don't get to work an 8 to 5 or anything like that at this stage of the business. So really intentional with that. The other side of that is I also make sure to attend as much as I can when there is the opportunity at their school. So part of the benefit of being an entrepreneur is setting your own schedule, right? So if I know there's a swim test, if there's a dance recital, if there's a class party, whatever it is, I really try to make sure that is in my calendar. Because otherwise it's kind of like, why are we doing all this for a degree if we're still going to miss out on everything else?
Right.
So figuring that out has been really a challenge at times, but it's also something that's a priority. And so with that, it's just, okay, got to do this and this to make it all happen. And we're able to figure that out.
Yeah. Do you have additional support other than school to run this family?
So my husband will pick up from time to time. He's gone in the mornings. He has to be at work at 6. He's a firefighter, so he's got to be there at the station at 6.
Wow.
So he's out the door before the mornings, which is just the kids and I time. But he's home for dinner every night, which is great. We have families in the area. So it's really good. And they love going to school. So I want to make sure that at the same time, they get their time there, and that they have so much fun there, and then they have so much fun at home, and kind of compartmentalize that to a degree so that they can enjoy when they're there, and it's not I wish I was somewhere else or anything like that.
Yeah, my kids have loved they went to we're all day air day time.
Yeah. I've gotten yelled at for coming too early for pickup. I mean, it's a thing.
Yeah, it's challenging when you're dropping off. They're like, I don't want to go. Please pick me up early today. You're like, shoot, okay, so I'll get there early. And they're like, why are you here?
100%. I will send the teacher a message. She said this earlier. What do you think? She's like, I would not do that. Like, she was fine kind of set up. So yeah, we're early. We get up. My kids are up early, so the time school opens. Like we've had the morning together, and they're excited to go, which is nice feeling.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing to be able to have them in a place that, they're having 100%. A great time. We get to do our thing separately, and then we have our time together. And that's, I think that's just the best of both worlds.
I agree.
They get so much out of that environment. And just watching as they've gotten into elementary school, watching them compared to some peers, I'm like, this has served you well.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Well, I don't mean to digress too much on that. I just always, I find it, hearing from different parents when their kiddos are particularly much younger, while running a growing business is always lots of nuggets of advice for those of us in it as well.
Yes. Yeah. It's a lot to juggle, but it's also a blessing to juggle it all.
Absolutely. I hope they're very proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So as we get close to wrapping up, what's one piece of advice you can give our listeners so that they can make their lives or businesses stronger and better today?
Yeah, I think always find a way to learn something new. However you receive media, however you receive that information, whether it's through peer groups, going to speakers, reading, podcasts, whatever it is, there's so much out there. I heard a quote today, or someone speaking today, and they're like, just because you read something 5 years ago does not mean it's the same concept to you today. So you can reread the same books, you can reread or rehear, and it'd be a completely different message based on where you are in your business and everything like that. So that really stuck with me of like, just because I read it once doesn't mean I mastered that book, that, idea. So I think always find a way to learn something new, hear it in a different perspective, because you are always in a different spot in your business, right? When we were 2019 versus even 21 when we launched to 24, like I can hear the same thing and be totally different. So that's a real big win, I think, when you can hear it to understand it, but then hear it to really understand it for where you are.
Yep. I've absolutely experienced that. I think the most relevant example is having been an EO accelerator and been around the sun a few times in that journey. And we have our quarterly learning days, and I think, okay, I've been to the execution or whatever a couple times, like what am I going to get? But I am different every time. And, I might be checking things off the list, but that means I'm ready for that next thing. And so I 100% echo what you're saying. Just, don't resist hearing something again or going back to the well, because you are a different person. Your business looks totally different. And nobody's really listening anyways. So.
Well, and that's it. You get caught on one thing at that time, and you might miss the next 20, 30 minutes while you're kind of spinning on something. And then at those days, there's so much knowledge being shared and information that there's no way you can take it all in. So, big fan of repeating that same thing, because you always have a different perspective. Sometimes you even have a different facilitator in that specific group, right? So that's, again, a whole new world.
Exactly. Okay, Morgan, this has been such fun. Where can people find you and do business with you?
Yeah, thank you. So Ticketnology.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Morgan Katz. I have a little ticket after my name just to make sure that it's me. But that's the two best things. And my calendar is on there, and love to chat with anyone if they want to talk about tickets, and we can have some time and discover what you're doing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Lauren. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a 5-star review. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a feature episode? Head over to theimpatiententrepreneur.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.